Genesis 4 verse 2. And again she bore his brother Abel. Now Abel was a keeper of sheep, and Cain a worker of the ground. Genesis 4 verse 3. In the course of time Cain brought to the Lord an offering of the fruit of the ground. Genesis 4 verse 4. And Abel also brought of the firstborn of his flock, and of their fat portions, and the Lord had regard for Abel and his offering. Genesis 4 verse 5. But for Cain and his offering he had no regard. So Cain was very angry, and his face fell. Genesis 4 verse 6. The Lord said to Cain, Why are you angry, and why has your face fallen? Genesis 4 verse 7. If you do well, will you not be accepted? And if you do not do well, sin is crouching at the door. Its desire is contrary to you, but you must rule over it. Genesis 4 verse 8. Cain spoke to Abel his brother, and when they were in the field, Cain rose up against his brother Abel and killed him. Genesis 4 verse 9. Then the Lord said to Cain, Where is Abel your brother? He said, I do not know, am I my brother's keeper? Genesis 4 verse 10. And the Lord said, What have you done? The voice of your brother's blood is crying to me from the ground. Genesis 4 verse 11. And now you are cursed from the ground, which has opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. Genesis 4 verse 12. When you work the ground, it shall no longer yield to you its strength. You shall be a fugitive and a wanderer on the earth. Genesis 4 verse 13. Cain said to the Lord, My punishment is greater than I can bear. Genesis 4 verse 14. Behold, you have driven me today away from the ground, and from your face I shall be hidden. I shall be a fugitive and a wanderer on the earth, and whoever finds me will kill me. Genesis 4:15. Then the Lord said to him, Not so. If anyone kills Cain, vengeance shall be taken on him sevenfold. And the Lord put a mark on Cain, lest any who found him should attack him. Genesis 4 verse 16. Then Cain went away from the presence of the Lord and settled in the land of Nod, east of Eden. Genesis 4 verse 17. Cain knew his wife, and she conceived and bore Enoch. When he built a city, he called the name of the city after the name of his son, Enoch. Genesis 4 verse 25. And Adam knew his wife again, and she bore a son, and called his name Seth, for she said, God has appointed for me another offspring instead of Abel, for Cain killed him. Hebrews 11 verse 4. By faith Abel offered to God a more acceptable sacrifice than Cain, through which he was commended as righteous, God commending him by accepting his gifts. And through his faith, though he died, he still speaks. 1 John 3 verse 12. We should not be like Cain, who was of the evil one and murdered his brother. And why did he murder him? Because his own deeds were evil and his brother's righteous. Jude 1 verse 11. Woe to them, for they walked in the way of Cain and abandoned themselves for the sake of gain to Balaam's error, and perished in Korah's rebellion. Matthew 23 verse 35. So that on you may come all the righteous blood shed on earth, from the blood of righteous Abel to the blood of Zechariah the son of Berechiah, whom you murdered between the sanctuary and the altar. Luke 11 verse 50 to 51. So that the blood of all the prophets shed from the foundation of the world may be charged against this generation, from the blood of Abel to the blood of Zechariah, who perished between the altar and the sanctuary. Yes, I tell you, it will be required of this generation. Genesis 4 verse 26. To Seth also a son was born, and he called his name Enosh. At that time people began to call upon the name of the Lord. We should not be like Cain, who was of the evil one and murdered his brother. And why did he murder him? Because his own deeds were evil and his brother's righteous. Jude 1 verse 11. Woe to them, for they walked in the way of Cain and abandoned themselves for the sake of gain to Balaam's error, and perished in Korah's rebellion.